The next few poses will be done in a standing position. Please move slowly and at your own pace. Keep the sturdy chair nearby for balance if needed. If you find that I'm talking faster than you are moving, please take your time and do fewer repetitions. Take a nice deep inhale and exhale. Place the feet about hips width apart and grounded on the floor. Lift the toes and spread them nice and wide and feel the navel pull gently in towards the spine. Push the toes into the floor and lean forward just a little bit. Feel the muscles that keep you steady. Lean back just a little bit and feel the toes come up. Feel the muscles that keep you steady in this position. Now push all four corners of the feet into the floor. Notice the steadiness of mountain pose. Notice how the steadiness of mountain pose feels. On the next inhale, roll the shoulders towards the ears, back and down so the shoulders are slightly open. Let the palms rest open to the side. Inhale and let the arms rise with the palms facing up. Exhale, bend at the elbows and allow the hands to come down the center line. Sink into the knees just a little. Repeat this again. Inhale, lift the arms with the palms facing up. Allow the hands and face to be relaxed. Continue with this movement at your own pace. Breathe as you move and try to coordinate the breath with the movement. On the next breath, lift the arms back over the head. Fingertips point in, palms face up. Imagine that you have candles in the palms of your hands and you do not want to spill them. Turn the fingertips so they face behind you. The palms remain up. Turn the fingertips to the side and then to the front like an offering, then out to the side walls. Breathe as you move, up to the top with the fingers facing in again, towards one another, and then forwards like an offering, then out to the side walls. Breathe as you move, up to the top with the fingers facing in again. Let's do this rotation one more time. After the second rotation, allow the hands to cascade down by the side and let them rest. Pause for one slow inhale and exhale. One more breath. Inhale, exhale. This next exercise is excellent for strengthening the spine and gently stretching the muscles of the back, front, and sides. Attempt to make the movement easeful and gentle. We will do these movements with various arm positions. The first arm position is the easiest. Please be sure to stay with the one that feels best for your body. We will demonstrate them all. Take the right hand to the waist and then the left. Roll the shoulders open. And on the exhale, lean to the right. Inhale to the center. On the exhale, lean to the left. Inhale back to the center. Roll the shoulders up, back, and down. And on the next inhale, gently pull the navel towards the spine. Pull the shoulder blades softly together. Get a small lift in the chin and feel a sense of lengthening through the front of the body. On the next exhale, begin to fold gently forward. It does not have to be all the way. Bend the knees slightly. Inhale and rise back to a standing position. Open the left arm to the side. Keep the elbow bent. Leave the right hand on the waist. Inhale. Exhale, lean slightly to the right, and then return back to the center. Bring the left hand down to the waist. Lift the right arm. Inhale. Exhale and lengthen to the left. Return to the center. Roll the shoulders open. Gently pull the navel in towards the spine. Pull the shoulder blades softly together. Get a small lift in the chin. Exhale and fold forward halfway. Inhale back to standing. Open the left arm again. Inhale, and on the exhale, lean to the right. Inhale and return back to the center. Place the left hand on the waist. Lift the right arm. Inhale. On the exhale, lean to the left. Inhale and return back to the center. Roll the shoulders open. Lengthen through the front of the body. Slightly pull the shoulder blades together. Get a small lift in the chin. Exhale and fold forward. Knees slightly bent. Inhale and return to standing in mountain pose. Pause for a moment. Inhale and exhale. For this warrior sequence, attempt to keep the movements gentle and relaxed. If you notice that you are struggling, move the feet closer together. Lower the arms or make the movements smaller. This pose is great for strengthening the legs, respiration, and opening the shoulders. Step the left foot forward just a few feet. The back foot points in at a 45-degree angle. The front knee bends and the hips face front if possible. Inhale, open the arms and bend at the elbows. On the exhale, bring the hands and elbows towards each other. Inhale, open the arms and push the heart softly forwards. Relax the shoulders. Exhale, bring the arms together. Inhale, open the arms to where you feel comfortable. Exhale, relax the arms inwards. Inhale, open and expand. Exhale, contract. Inhale, exhale. Bring the hands back down by the side, return to mountain pose. One breath here. Inhale, exhale. Step the right foot forward. Take a moment, there's no rush. Ground the back foot into the floor. Bend the front knee. When you are ready, open the arms. Inhale. Exhale, bring the hands and elbows towards one another. Inhale, open the arms. This is a relaxed opening in the chest. Exhale, bring the hands and arms towards one another. Inhale, repeat again, creating spaciousness with a full inhale. Exhale, contract and relax the arms slightly. 2 more times at your own pace. Inhale, open. Exhale, close. Let the hands rest down by the side and return back to mountain pose. Pause here for a few breaths.
Welcome back to the 52nd online episode of Peacetime, hosted every Sunday morning by Peace Point with myself, Phra Nicholas Thanissaro, live streaming from our meditation center in London. Last time you saw me, we looked at blessing number 10, effective communication. With the Dhamma talk today, we will continue our series on Enlightened Living with blessing number 11, cherishing our parents. So today's session will run to about an hour and 10 minutes, starting with a 25-minute talk on how to appreciate our debt of gratitude to our parents, then 30 minutes of meditation and 25 minutes to explain how to repay the debt of gratitude to our parents. So with today's blessing, we move from the third group on making ourselves useful or setting oneself up in life to the fourth group of blessings, which contains blessings 11 through 14. Nearly all of the blessings in the fourth group concern how we take care of our close family, and therefore the grouping is sometimes referred to as harmony in the family life. It precedes group 5, which we will come to in 4 blessings time, which will reach toward becoming a pillar of society. It goes without saying that harmony at home is something we have to get right if we are truly to serve society at large. Many a person has been held back in their career because of conflicts in their family life. This doesn't mean that it's compulsory to have a husband, wife, or children to make our way up the stairway of the blessings. But if one does have one's own family, then our duties to them must be fulfilled properly. And unless we are cloned from an anonymous test tube, then even a confirmed bachelor or spinster can't avoid at some stage having had parents as part of their life. Although there is an entire blessing dedicated to the cultivation of gratitude that comes in at about number 25, with this blessing number 11, we start to meet up with gratitude in the specific context of our parents. Although rarity does not necessarily guarantee something being valuable, it does say something about the difficulty of achieving it. In terms of gratitude, the Buddha pointed out in the Anguttara Nikaya that it is rare to find 2 sorts of people. Firstly, a person who is willing to initiate a favor, and secondly, a person to acknowledge a favor enough to be grateful and repay that favor. As we shall see for this blessing on cherishing our parents, we will characterize a parent as someone who has initiated great sacrifices for a child that has never done anything to help them. We will characterize a child who cherishes their parents as someone who not only appreciates what their parents have done for them, but who is grateful and tries to repay the favor done. The practice of gratitude towards parents, as we shall see later in more detail, basically moves through 3 stages of maturity. Firstly, being able to appreciate our debt of gratitude to our parents, or katanyu. Secondly, finding physical and spiritual ways to repay that debt of gratitude to our parents, or kattaveti. And lastly, announcing the goodness of our parents. Only when a child has been able to do all 3 of these duties can they have been considered to have cherished their parents, according to the definitions of blessing number 11. So today we'll look at the detail of how to become more aware of what our parents have done for us, before looking in more detail at the practicality of practicing duties, which are often known in the Buddhist world as filial piety. Up to this point in the blessings, we may have had a hard time recognizing in others the sort of goodness we would like to cultivate in ourselves. We would have had a particularly hard time recognizing virtues in ourselves, since it is much easier to perceive the virtues of others. But at this point in the blessings, since everyone has parents and everyone has received benefit at the hands of their parents, in theory, more than for others, virtue ought to be easy for us to identify concerning our parents. If we are able to recognize, repay, and announce the goodness of our parents, our familiarity with such virtue will become all the stronger, allowing us to see the good in our parents and subsequently allowing us to tune in to the goodness in others. This is why the Roman statesman Marcus Tullius Cicero called gratitude not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all others. So to clarify, if we can be grateful to our parents, that gratitude is such a fundamental virtue that it will be the foundation of any other virtues that we might like to develop. The Chicken Soup for the Soul co-author Jack Canfield also said, gratitude is the single most important ingredient to living a successful and fulfilled life. Gratitude to our parents is such a fundamental virtue that in the olden days, people used this as a benchmark for judging the character of strangers. Sometimes we have to know someone for a long, long time before we can really say we know them in depth. However, if you meet someone for the first time and you find out that they neglect their parents, you can be sure they are unlikely to have any interest in helping anyone less closely related. It was said that just as you can tell the difference between a gold-plated object and one that is solid gold by passing it through a flame, you can tell whether someone is truly virtuous by whether or not they cherish their parents. If you recognize and repay the debt of gratitude you have to your parents, apart from gaining personal virtue, you will also set a good example for your own children, and, in theory, in turn, they will want to take care of you in your old age. Furthermore, many people meditate for many years without being able to make any progress. Sometimes their mind has a continuous feeling of dryness. However, if they're able to shore up any conflicts they may have had with their parents, if they can take steps to rebuild the bridges in their old age, this often creates a richness of mind which allows them to progress again in their meditation. In our individualistic society, it's sometimes easy to forget that we didn't get where we are today entirely by our own efforts. To put it in rather transactional terms, our personal successes are the result of considerable investment of food, care, protection, training, and teaching by others. All these resources have come to us through the good wishes of others in society, intentions without which humanity would soon collapse. It's not that people have helped us because they expect something in return from us, but if we can find it in our hearts to express some appreciation or find ways to repay the favors they've done for us, it would help to create an atmosphere of give and take in society instead of dog eat dog. In some cases, sons and daughters merely fail to notice help received from their parents. An example of this complacency is where you often hear teenagers complaining, "I didn't ask to be born," or "My parents owe it to me." At other times, however, it's not just an oversight, but it may be the result of certain historical movements or schools of thought that actively ignored or denied filial piety. From what I've noticed, there seem to be three examples of parental gratitude deniers: those following the selfish gene theory, those who believe in hereditary sin, and those belonging to patrilineal cultures. So the first school of thought that denies owing anything to parents draws on the belief that, in an evolutionary sense, parents are only kind to their children because they want to see their character and genes passed down to the next generation. This view is even formulated into a genetic theory called the selfish gene, from the book by emeritus Oxford professor Richard Dawkins, by which it's proposed that man is nothing more than a mechanism by which genes replicate themselves. In such a case, parents don't show their kindness to their children out of compassion, but out of selfish desire to propagate their own genes. If such a theory were really true, if you're walking down the street with four brothers who were all identical twins and with at least half of the same genes as you yourself, then you would rather sacrifice yourself to a monster than let your brothers die in order to protect the majority of your genes. Such theories have their limitations because they cannot explain why views such as antinatalism, which disrupt the replication of genes, might grow and spread in the population. The practical outcome of this theory is that instead of thinking to repay their parents for all the good things they've received, they think that they are repaying the gratitude to their parents by giving them grandchildren. This logic is equivalent to borrowing money from a bank to open a new business and then paying back the loan to your customers. Instead of thinking how best to cherish their poor parents, Such children spend their time thinking how best to get themselves a boyfriend or a girlfriend to carry on the family line. Second reason people might turn their back on kindness received from their parents is belief in hereditary sin. Some philosophies of life, such as those advocated by the Unification Church or Monism, suggest that all the bad things in our life are passed down to us by our parents, and therefore only by abandoning your parents and marrying into their religion can you escape from sin. In fact, it is not just the Unification Church, but according to Janja Lalich, this is a fairly common psychological technique used by cults generally to separate emotionally vulnerable people from their families. The third reason people might turn their back on kindness received from their parents are cultures that value parricide. In some Ugandan tribes where there's a tradition of patrilineal descent, even up to the 1960s, conjugal disputes commonly ended in the death of a young man's father was seen at the very least as a justifiable homicide, and at worst, an honor killing to demonstrate that a young man was brave enough to kill their own father and therefore tough enough to become chief of the tribe afterwards. Although these may be rather extreme examples, what I'd like to convey is that although it may appear easy to describe the kindness parents show their children, generally we don't dig very deep. When Buddhists describe the debt of gratitude children owe to their parents as so colossal that even if you were to carry them around on one's shoulders for the rest of one's life, it would be hard to repay one's debt of gratitude to them. It's easy to be glib and assume this to be an exaggeration. To avoid getting too bogged down in the heavy narrative of indebtedness to one's parents that comes to us in the scriptures, and to retain some levity, I would like to start off by retelling a Mother's Day sketch which I saw on YouTube that illustrates the most obvious part of kindness received at our parents' hand, which is in the period from birth to adulthood. Most people who go for a job interview have the expectation that any sacrifice of time, energy, or ability that they give in their role will be recognized and remunerated. But for the interview I'm going to tell you about, the interviewees are going to be severely disappointed. So, the interviewer bills the job title as personal assistant, where the main job is to care for a work associate. The job has a range of responsibilities and requirements that are really quite extensive. The first requirement for the job would be mobility, as it is a job that requires that you stand up to work most of the time, or really all of the time. You will constantly be on your feet or constantly bending over. You'll be constantly exerting yourself at a high level of stamina. This may be required for more than 40 hours a week. In fact, it may be necessary for 135 to unlimited hours per week. This exertion will be required 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. There may be no breaks available, and generally an employee has a legal right to 20 minutes rest breaks if they work for more than 6 hours a day, but for this job, the right has been waived. At this point, you might want to phone up your union rep. Okay, so you are allowed to get lunch, but only when the associate has done eating their lunch. Ideally, someone qualified for this job might have a degree in medicine, in finance, and the culinary arts, and must be able to do a detailed risk assessment of anything that might be a threat to the life or health of their associate. And the situations that you have a legal responsibility for may occur at any time of the day or night. Since the associate needs constant attention, sometimes you will have to stay up with the associate throughout the night. You will need to help with the laundry, help with homework, help to make sure the associate is clean and goes to bed on time, and that they brush their teeth. The ideal candidate must be able to work in a chaotic environment and on vacations. In fact, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year holidays will mean that the workload is going to go up. Also, a cheerful disposition is required at all times. At this point, you might be thinking that this interview is a cruel, sick, and twisted joke. And there's no company car, you have to provide that for yourself. And it needs you to drive a minivan. You need to have a valid driving license and will be doing a lot of driving, in fact, to places like the supermarket, soccer games, school, team meets, and possibly the emergency room. This position requires excellent negotiation and interpersonal skills. And the trickiest part is really going to be the teenage years, when you're going to be required to deal with hormonal rampages, teenage heartbreak, puberty, and the talk. Okay, so let's cover the salary. The position is going to pay absolutely nothing. Yeah, it's pro bono. And you will be doing this job completely for free. In fact, you may need to take a second job to finance yourself to do this job. So that we're clear, this job doesn't pay actual money. In the first year, the sole pay will be in happy baby giggles and irresistible cuteness. Later on in the job, you might get some inside perks like pride, and if you're lucky, the occasional thank you. Generally, you won't be rewarded in any substantial fashion until the associate becomes a parent themselves and learns to appreciate you. Oh yes, and I hope you won't accuse me of being sexist. Just for women, the job requires a 9-month unpaid internship. So, have you guessed what the inhumane and crazy job is yet? Yes, parenthood, and mostly motherhood. Ironically, at this time in the world, although it has been going out of fashion somewhat, the number of people currently holding this position adds up to about 43.5 million people who manage to meet every requirement. So, all you associates, do you now have a little bit more of an inkling about the sacrifices made by your personal assistant? At least from the time you were born to the time you left home. In Buddhism, the parenting remit is generally summarized in terms of physical and spiritual care for a child. More than any other species, the physical requirements for parenting for humans exceed any other species in the mammal kingdom. Providing food, shelter, clothing, education, and medical care for offspring for many years after they are able to fend for themselves. Parents often have to put themselves at risk or in debt in order to look after their children. If you find a parent poaching or shoplifting, 99 times out of 100, they are doing it only to put food on the table for their family. If it was for themselves personally, they would never take such a risk. As for the spiritual side of parenting, parents are also saddled with the task of being a good example to their children, who will quickly catch them out if they say, "Do what I say, not what I do." However, in characteristic style, Buddhists look back before birth to debts of gratitude we owe our parents that go back beyond what we can see with the naked eye. It can be said that the 9-month unpaid internship of pregnancy requires a huge number of sacrifices by the mother. 40 weeks of going for regular medical checkups, eating nutritious food while avoiding the temptation of spicy foods, drink, and cigarettes, wearing loose clothes and having to rely on other people, while also trying to avoid extremes of emotion that might upset the baby in the womb. In fact, Buddhists, in their thankfulness to parents, goes back even before birth to conception, where it's thought that even if a child is put up for adoption at birth, the fact that they are born human at all is already one of the biggest gifts that they have received from their blood parents, because Buddhists don't consider human birth as an automatic entitlement. It's only by the genes of your parents that you have escaped coming into this world as an ant or a worm or a squirrel. So part of the filial duty I mentioned at the beginning of today's session was to appreciate what our parents have done for us. Only if we appreciate that debt can we go on to repay our parents' goodness or announce the goodness to the world. This is why the Buddha's advice in the Sigalovada Sutta to children in relation to their parents, which I'll come back to after the meditation, starts by recognizing, as I have been supported by my parents. So, just before we come to time for our meditation today, I would like to tell a short traditional story which illustrates the logic behind being thankful to our parents, even those who do not care for us after we are born. There was once a woman of the streets who was with child. By profession, she knew that if the child turned out to be a boy, she would be unable to keep him. Her anxiety only increased day by day, until at the end of the 9 months, her fears were realized. The newborn babe was a boy. Many times she took the baby to the water's edge at the river with the full intention to drown him and finish the whole business, but with tears in her eyes from having carried him in her womb for so long, she could not bring herself to do the deed. At the same time, she could not keep the child, or else she would destroy her livelihood. She compromised by leaving him in a bundle by the side of the road, with the thought that there would surely be a compassionate passerby who would come and rescue the child and adopt him. The first passerby that morning was the abbot from the local temple on his alms round. He spotted the child and, afraid for its welfare, took him back to the temple. The abbot guessed how the baby had come to be there, but in the absence of anyone coming forward to claim him, he continued to provide all the food, shelter, clothing, and education the child needed to grow up into a teenager. The boy could run and play with the other children and do everything expected of him, but he had a chip on his shoulder and would run and hide if any of the others teased him for not knowing who his parents were. The boy would blame his unseen parents for the predicament in which he found himself. One day the abbot heard the boy complaining out loud about his parents who had abandoned him. The abbot thought the time has come to talk to this boy about his life. So the abbot started his conversation with the boy by asking him, "If someone were to give you $1, would you curse him?" "Of course not," replied the boy. "I would bow to that person, or at least thank them, and would not forget my gratitude to them." "And if someone were to come along and offer you $1 for your life, would you take it?" "Of course I wouldn't," replied the boy indignantly. "Do you think that's all my life is worth? $10 then. You must be joking." The abbot raised the sum to $100, $1,000, $10,000, $100,000, and $1 million, but the boy would not part with his life so easily. Asked why, the boy replied, "Even $1 million is useless if you have no life left in which to spend it." "Well, what about if someone were to come along and offer you $1 to cut off your right arm? Would you take it?" "Of course I wouldn't," replied the boy indignantly. "Do you think that's all the integrity of my body is worth? $10 then. Daylight robbery." The abbot raised the sum to $100, $1,000, $10,000, $100,000, and $1 million, but the boy would not part with his right arm. "Don't you want to be a millionaire?" asked the abbot, and the boy said even $1 million is no substitute for the loss of one's physical integrity. "And if someone to come along and offer you $1 to cut off your little finger, would you take it?" "Of course I wouldn't," replied the boy angrily. "Do you think you can put a price on a part of the human body?" $10 then. Forget it." The abbot raised the sum to $100, $1,000, $10,000, $100,000, and then $1 million, but the boy would not part with his little finger. Asked why, the boy said that even $1 million could not replace the thing most precious to him, a healthy human body. The abbot concluded, "Just now, you said that if someone gave you $1, you would thank them, bow to them, and never forget your gratitude to them. Yet, your parents have given you your healthy human body for free, even the little finger of which you would not part with for $1 million. So how come you're sitting here cursing them for not having given you more?" So this was a story to illustrate how even if we have nothing to thank our parents for from birth onwards, we still owe them a debt of gratitude because due to them, we have $1 million body that allows us to do all the good things we want in this world. So now that we know a little bit more about appreciating the unconditional kindness shown to us by our parents, before we go any further, let's take the opportunity to cultivate inner wisdom by settling ourselves for 30 minutes of meditation, which today is entitled Spreading the Light of Hope. If at this time you would like to find a comfortable sitting position for yourself as you listen to my guidance. So now that we are ready to meditate, you can adjust your sitting posture to be as comfortable as possible. Doesn't matter whether you're sitting on the floor or on a chair, as long as you can settle yourself down as comfortably as possible. And we gently close our eyes. Close our eyes in much the same way that we might close them in order to go to sleep. We try to avoid any tension in our posture. So even if we're sitting cross-legged, we try to do so in as relaxed a way as possible. Make sure there's nothing to impede the smooth circulation of our blood throughout our legs. And we place both of our hands palm upwards in our lap. We're sitting on a chair, then generally sitting with 2 feet flat on the floor and extending our back to its full height with our chin horizontal. And again placing both of our hands palm upwards in our lap. Ensuring that we have unimpeded circulation all the way from the top of our head right the way down to the tips of our toes. And we breathe deeply and gently 2 or 3 times, letting each breath carry our attention back within ourselves. Breathing in until our breath reaches all the way down to the deepest point of our abdomen, before breathing out again very slowly. We allow our breath to embody our awareness and transport it back to the present moment. We may feel the way in which our shoulders drop to their natural height and rest naturally. We can follow our breath a few more times before taking a little moment to observe once again our sitting posture, so that we can be sure that we're sitting in the most comfortable possible position. To allow our mind to remain still and undistracted for the longest possible time, without any physical discomfort to bother our continuity of awareness. And if at any time in our meditation any discomfort returns, then we can feel free to just adjust ourselves at any time. So we adjust our posture to be comfortable and slowly bring our attention back to be aware of our bodily sensation. And we do that by relieving every muscle from any remaining tension. Starting at the top of our head, we allow our attention to move gently down through the body, relaxing the forehead, and moving on down through our face, relaxing our neck and shoulders, and observing as the flow of relaxation spreads along both of our arms to our hands, all the way to the tips of our fingers. We allow the sense of relaxation to spread down through our chest, trunk and torso, across the whole of our abdomen, and down to our legs and feet, all the way down to the tips of our toes. Leaving us with the feeling that all the remaining tension in our body has been slowly dissipated completely, especially from our facial muscles and our shoulders. leaving us feeling completely relaxed, at ease, and comfortable. Because when our body is comfortable, it's very easy for our mind to become still and remain undistracted. So we take as much time as we need to make sure the whole of our body feels at ease. And turning now to the relaxation of the mind. If our mind starts to wander or be distracted, in fact, there's no need to put up a fight against those thoughts. We just bring our attention back gently to the relaxation of our body, conjuring up a feeling inside ourselves as if we are about to go on holiday, to take a vacation. We might picture ourselves sitting alone in serene, natural surroundings, which could be on a beach or on the top of a mountain, surrounded by forest or even in the desert. Anywhere that you'd like to be, anywhere where you'd feel the happiest. You can imagine yourself being in the middle of that place, at the center of that space, as if you were becoming one with those serene, natural surroundings. As if this were your personal corner of peace, where you can take a step back from the busy world outside. It's a place where you can rest and re-energize your mind with peace. So we take a moment to observe our surrounding space and feel as if it expands slowly outwards to the horizon. And here at the center of our personal space, we observe and take a mental note of the way our whole body is pervaded with a sense of peace and tranquility. And we allow our awareness to come into harmony with this sensation of peace, to the point that the thoughts gradually drop away, leaving the mind at a standstill, allowing the mind to decompress, letting go of any remaining thoughts, feelings or residual emotions, any frustrations or worries still cluttering your mind. You might imagine that those thoughts in the mind are gradually blowing away like thistledown, or the seeds on a dandelion clock, gradually freeing up our mind of all the burdens that we've been carrying inside us, whatever they may be. Because this is a time for us to rest, to just be. And it begins with the unburdening of our own mind from all kinds of mental clutter, letting them go one by one, little by little, until our mind feels as comfortable as our body, feeling free and liberated, as if everything inside us has been transformed into weightlessness and spaciousness. And when the mind can become unburdened, and everything seems to become broad and expansive, light and free. And the feeling when our mind can break free from the usual negativity it feels is rather like that of clouds floating freely in the sky, free of any control, free of any kind of force, even defying gravity, free and unconstrained. So take as long as you need to free up your mind until your body seems to merge with the space around you. At which point we can slowly bring our attention back inside ourselves, to that special place at the center of our abdomen, or a place inside us where the mind feels the most comfortable. It's at the center that we can connect with our true self inside on a deeper level. So gently place the mind, place the awareness at the center of yourself, at a place in the middle of your abdomen, and observe the gradually increasing sense of peace that slowly immerses the mind, continuously and gently. And here at the center, our mind finally feels that it has returned home after a long journey, giving it the chance to rest and re-energize without us needing to do anything, to engage with anyone or anything outside of itself. It's the time for the mind to rest, to sit back and relax. Finally have the chance to shed all its ingrained negativity. And here at the center we can visualize an image, to have an object for the mind as a point of reference or an anchor to allow it to settle. And in this respect you can visualize a bright full moon, like the one we've seen shining high up in the sky. But in this case we feel that the bright full moon slowly emerges at our own center inside us, shining brightly, radiating its light all around, warm, soft, bright and clear. We allow this light to expand, letting the warm, bright moonlight share its light around, expanding, illuminating the lives of every living being, and letting that bright full moon represent our mind at a standstill inside of ourselves. So we let this inner brightness shine forth as a token of our own mind, at one with it, at one and the same as the light shining brightly all around. And if we find our mind becoming distracted from time to time, we acknowledge the activity of the mind and direct our mind back again to the center. The reality of meditation in the beginning is that it's always going to be this gentle back and forth. So pay attention to the process of moving away from the center and coming back. As you do so, this movement of the attention will leave you unfazed, allowing you to come back again and again, while cultivating a sense of patience and gentleness with yourself, and never trying to push anything away. You never have to try to control or fix your thoughts. And if at any time during the meditation you realize that the mind's wandered or got caught up in thinking, it's not a problem. It's just what it's used to doing. But we give it something different. We reintroduce it to the center. Every time that we bring our awareness back to the center, it will allow us to dive deep to where the stillness and calm is, to where the beauty is. You need to tell yourself that there's nothing that you have to get right or perfect. You simply remain curious and observe in the present moment. You're getting to know the center while observing its qualities. You're creating a space between yourself and your thoughts and tapping into that still, silent place. If the thoughts return, we do our best to ignore them. And if ignoring the thoughts proves ineffective, then we can make use of the traditional mantra instead, using the words Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang. The more you say the mantra, the more power you give to the words of the mantra, and the more they will start to be able to help our mind become free of thought. You start to lead deeper towards a sense of purity in the mind. So we feel these words resonating within the heart and within every cell of ourselves, to the very fiber of our being, with each repetition of the mantra. Without meditation, most people have an attention span no better than a goldfish, sometimes estimated to be about 8 seconds. But however you measure up to a goldfish, it seems fair to say that relaxation and focus are two qualities that everyone wants more of. The ancients believed that you can quiet the mind and settle your nerves by focusing on a single object, like inner brightness, a full moon, or an imagined candle flame inside ourselves. And such a technique can help us enhance our cognitive function, mental health, and spiritual connectedness. Because often people have forgotten how to relax. Everything from technology to the pandemic has made it difficult for people to focus their minds and find a state of calm. But by focusing inwardly on a meditational object, it helps us to empty our mind. By keeping our awareness in gentle contact with the center of the body, through meditation on inner brightness, can increase our cognitive performance and focus, attention span, and the quality of our sleep. Digging deeper, even research says that inner visualization of brightness can enhance working and spatial memory, and even spatial attention. It bolsters our selective attention, cognitive flexibility. And since meditation helps with relaxation, it can also improve sleep quality and reduce the severity of insomnia. It will take us beyond the material world by utilizing the intuitive or internal eye to calm our mental state. But it's not entirely about calming ourselves down. It also brings a sense of internal strength and resilience, allowing us to deal better with day-to-day life, because we no longer react impulsively to what life throws at us. Some of the spiritual benefits which meditation brings are also tuning into a sense of moderation in our emotions, our actions, and our movements, and an increase in consciousness and clarity. But all we need to do is to maintain our attention gently in contact with the brightness at the center of our body. And in letting go of the thoughts, you trust that everything worth remembering will actually be even clearer after you've meditated. As with all forms of meditation, it's best not to go into your practice expecting a particular experience, but rather to be open to what comes up. And this will help us to enhance our relationship with ourselves or our emotional integrity. When the mind comes to a standstill, when it breaks free of extraneous thought, it will connect with the peace energy that we've generated. And we'll always have it there when the mind is pure and free from mental impurities, whether it be greed, hatred, or delusion. The peace inside will transform into loving kindness, compassion, good wishes, and positive intention for others. And as today's meditational theme is the spreading of the light of hope, by now we'll start to realize that hope must begin within our own minds. When we are the light, then we are able to reach out and share the light with others as a result of that. And that's when hope becomes more than just an idea, but something that can be shared through the practice of meditation. The starting point for hope is when our mind can come to a standstill, become free of thought, and start to generate inner light and well-being. But the true way to sustain this generation of light and hope is to avoid pushing too hard. This is why we always put so much emphasis on the concept of comfort in meditation, as a way to keep the mind steady, calm, relaxed, and at the same time just being an observer in meditation. And there's no need to interfere in the process. It's more like we take one step back and observe what's going on. So we gently place our attention at the center of the candlelight inside, and feel the light spread slowly outwards, expanding and radiating in all directions, until we can feel the light perfusing the whole of our entire body and being. We allow it to expand further until it covers the whole of the room where we're sitting for meditation, further still to the whole building, to our neighborhood, and all the way outwards to the whole city, the country, the entire nation, and the rest of the world. Sharing this light of hope, love, and peace to whoever is within reach, with the affirmation that may our loving kindness reach out to all people, all sentient beings. May they live free from danger, from sadness, from suffering of all kinds. May anyone who has experienced misfortune be free from that sadness and sorrow. And may joy and happiness fill their lives instead. So we spread our loving kindness, our compassionate intention to all living beings without exception. Our mind, like the full moon, spreading its light to every person, every living being, regardless of race, religion, or creed. Simply sharing our universal love, wishing them to be free from harm, to be established in joy and happiness. In the same way that all the individual candles, which in themselves are not particularly bright, but when lit together can produce a more substantial brightness to illuminate the world. In the same way, we bring together our small intentions for hope and peace, allowing them to connect together from all around the world. And those tiny intentions from meditators everywhere, radiating loving kindness together, can form a worldwide tide for peace and good on our planet. We allow it to expand beyond borders, boundaries, reaching out to every sentient being, further outwards to friends, family, loved ones, whether they're still living or have passed on. We embrace them all with that peace energy and with that loving kindness, whether they're here or elsewhere, making the affirmation that they find comfort and loving kindness in all that we share. May the seeds of compassion be planted in the hearts, minds, and souls of every living being, that everyone may live happy and free, safe from pandemics or epidemics, established in love and compassion, respect and generosity. May the power of our positive energy and merit keep us safe from all danger and suffering. So let's expand the light and energy beyond all limits. As we bring our attention back within ourselves and allowing the flow of energy running through our entire body to bring us back in touch with our bodily sensations, connecting with our positive affirmations on the inside, on the basis of the peace energy generated today, and through the sharing of that peace and the power of our loving kindness, hope, and energy, which will spread to all living beings for a few more moments in silence. Sappa Buddhanupavena, Sappa Dhammanupavena, Sappa Sanghanupavena, Sattha Soti, Bhavantu Te. So if you'd like to come to the end of your meditation for today, you can gradually open your eyes again. If you feel at all uncomfortable, then slowly try changing to a more comfortable position before gradually finishing your practice. So to return gently to the subject matter for today, we now consider some ways, having realized the debt of gratitude we owe to our parents, to actually repay some of that debt of gratitude. Much of the logic of filial piety revolves around the unconditional nature of the relationship between a parent and their child. There's once a man who, together with his brothers and sisters, had been looking after their mother throughout a constant period of 2 years, nursing her and paying for kidney dialysis at a monthly cost of thousands of dollars. Such a cost was certainly quite difficult for all the brothers and sisters to bear, but if they could not pay, then surely their mother would die. Because the mother was also suffering from mental disease, as soon as she was stronger after the dialysis, she would complain and continuously disturb the sons and daughters looking after her in the middle of the night. Looking after the mother was an ordeal for everyone concerned, and at the end of the 2 years, the thought occurred to all the siblings that 2 years was enough. They thought that all their efforts were surely enough to repay the debt of gratitude to their mother. In actual fact, though, if their mother had thought the same thing of her sick children early in their lives, then surely none of them would have survived to the present day. Their mother would have rather put herself in debt to see her children well again, or rather than seeing her children suffer. And this is the unconditional nature of the debt we are talking about between parents and their children. Usually, duty of care is not expressed as a length of time, because unconditional answer to how long would always be however long it takes. Filial piety within Buddhism is expressed more usefully in terms of 5 ways in which a child can help their parents, especially to overcome the 5 sorts of fears that parents tend to have in their old age. So again, coming back to the Singhalavada Sutta, the way children should express their gratitude to parents should concentrate on alleviating those fears. So the first way to practice filial piety is to support parents in their old age. This first duty helps the child to cultivate right view while alleviating the parents' fear of being abandoned in their old age. The second way to practice filial piety is to carry on a parent's life's work, assuming, of course, that the work they've been doing is wholesome and not running the mafia or something like that. It is a duty which helps us cultivate patience, responsibility, knowledge, and ability. It alleviates the parent's fear that their legacy will die with them. The third way to practice filial piety is to keep up the honor and traditions of the family, whether it be something as simple as not passing a beggar on the street without helping in some way. It will help us to become aware of the value of our family traditions and will alleviate the parents' fear that the good name of the family will be lost after they're gone. The fourth way to practice filial piety is to make yourself worthy of the family legacy. It is a requirement that helps keep dutiful sons and daughters free of the 6 roads to ruin. No parent in their right mind would want to pass on their inheritance to a child who's a drug addict. If a son or daughter can make themselves worthy to receive the inheritance, it will alleviate the parents' fear of the family wealth being frittered away once they're gone. The last way to practice filial piety is to make offerings, dedicating merit to one's parents after their death. It doesn't just mean organizing a lavish funeral or paying one's last respects, but specifically to the Buddhist tradition of dedicating merit to a loved one who has passed away, certainly during the funeral rites, but also regularly thereafter. For what I've noticed, especially from Thai and Sri Lankan Buddhists, the family will congregate at a temple once a year to remember a late parent and dedicate merit. Others, more diligent than that, might attend the temple every full moon day to do the same by sponsoring the chanting of the Dhamma Niyama Sutta in their late loved one's name. Fulfilling one's duties in this respect will help the child cultivate right view and responsibility, even after the passing of their parents. In addition, it will alleviate the parents' fear that there will be no one to perform funeral rites and dedicate merit for them after they're gone. Finally, I should point out that this advice to children from the Sigalovada Sutta should ideally come as part of a reciprocal relationship between a parent and their children, where the parent has already fulfilled their duties in bringing up the child properly, a subject which we will return to in more depth in the next blessing, number 12. The extent to which a child manages to fulfill their filial duties varies from person to person, but in general, you can categorize children into 3 types. Children whose virtue exceeds that of their parents and who bring more prosperity to their family than during the time of their parents, which in Pali is known as abhichata. Slightly less diligent are children whose virtue merely equals that of their parents, and who bring the same degree of prosperity to the family as during their parents' time, known in Pali as anujata. Lastly, there are the children whose virtue is less than their parents and who bring less prosperity to the family than during their parents' time, known in Pali as avachata. So in summary, the way we can express filial piety towards our parents comes at 2 phases in their life, when they are still living and when they have already passed. When they are still alive, we can help them with their daily chores, look after them when they're old, make sure that they are well fed and care for them and when they are sick. If they still have debts when they are in their old age, then we can try to clear those debts before they die. Appropriate ways to serve a parent might be by making their life more convenient, for example, by taking them to get fitted for a walking stick. When they pass away, we can organize their funeral and habitually dedicate merit for their benefit, with the thought that even if they find themselves in a state where they are unable to receive the merit immediately, it will be there for them until they are in a state to reclaim it. The practicality of looking after parents when they are still alive boils down to honoring and protecting them, which sounds a bit like the 4th commandment. The sort of thing which might count as honoring our parents might be gifts of things like clothing, accommodation, or medicine. Sometimes we might give a gift to our parents not out of necessity, but in order to honor them. Sometimes out of their goodwill for us, aged parents may seem fussy or critical because they have amassed a lot of life experience, certainly more than we have. Sometimes the fussiness is not all in our imagination. Nevertheless, out of respect, we need to be able to tolerate their eccentricities with a sense of cheerfulness. Old people have diminished strength and cannot do much for themselves. Only their mouth is in good working order, so we need to be patient when old folks tend to talk a lot. In fact, if we are patient, we can probably learn a lot from their life experience. Similarly, there may be potentially irritating things that we should keep to ourselves instead of burdening old parents with them. In terms of protecting our parents from the things we know might annoy them or tire them, we can alleviate stressful duties which might fall upon parents, and we can help them in this way to enjoy the last years of their life in full dignity. Everything I've mentioned so far has concerned material ways of repaying the debt of gratitude to parents. Nevertheless, we should heed the advice of the Buddha that it is hard for us to repay our debt of gratitude in this way, even if we were to serve our parents throughout their entire lives. A more substantial way to repay a debt of gratitude to parents, though, which reaches beyond the grave, is to give an aging parent spiritual support by encouraging them to perform wholesome deeds in their lives, to prepare them to face death without fear. Some parents may already be quite earnest practitioners of Buddhist merit-making activities, in which case all we need to do is to facilitate their practice. But for parents who are perhaps a little more reckless in their senior years, it may be a great merit for a beautiful son or daughter to inspire them to be faith in the Triple Gem and nurture them further to be generous, keep the precepts, and listen to spiritual teachings. Some aging parents lack the means to take them to the temple, whereby they would be able to listen to spiritual teachings for themselves, in which case perhaps we can step in and bring them to the temple ourselves. These days there are many spiritual books or audio channels from which they can also derive spiritual uplift and inspiration, which we could perhaps help make available to them. It can also be particularly helpful if you have the chance to teach them how to meditate, and it is a well-known tradition in the East for dutiful sons to ordain as monks for a time to repay their debt of gratitude to their parents. In Thai culture especially, there's a tradition for sons to ordain temporarily at the age of 20 in order that the parents may gain merit from organizing their ordination. It's said that the sponsor of an ordination ceremony will gain half of the merit of the ordinand himself. Therefore, as a dutiful son, finding the opportunity to ordain in order to repay one's debt of gratitude to one's parents is an important part of cultivating the 11th blessing. Often, old people seem to be so interested in having grandchildren that having heirs seems to be the most important thing for family succession. However, whether they end up with one heir or 100 is not the same thing as preserving a family legacy. In fact, the goodness of one's parents is better announced to the world if it shines through the example of the dutiful son or daughter. Of course, writing down their goodness in a biography, as is often done in the Thai tradition of funeral books, is one way of announcing a parent's goodness. But rather than having lots of badly behaved grandchildren, the actions of a son and daughter who outlive a parent speaks more loudly than words of a good upbringing. In this connection, even though the Buddha was a monk, he still cared for his parents, and he devoted considerable time and effort to this. Through his supernatural powers, he spent 3 months teaching the Abhidhamma to his mother, Queen Maya, in one of the heaven realms, although his mother had passed away only 7 days after giving birth to him. He also ensured his father had the chance to ordain and become enlightened. Although before renouncing the royal palace, the Buddha had a son called Rahula. 2,600 years later, however, he is mainly remembered for his spiritual legacy, not for his bloodline. Furthermore, for monks whose parents have become destitute after they have renounced the world, the Buddha gave a special dispensation for monks to share their alms food with their parents to support them in their old age. There is an assumption behind everything I've said so far that parents deserve to be cherished by their children. I've even said that according to the Buddhist view, even if a child is abandoned at birth, they still owe something to their parents. Nonetheless, we have only really looked at the child side of the parent-child relationship today, and it's possible that some parents may have failed to live up to their responsibilities to the child, especially where in contemporary society there's been what has been described as a collapse of parenting. There are some exceptional cases where a child has been so mistreated at the hands of their parents that they find it near impossible to imagine anything good about their parents. In the case of abuse of any sort at one's parents' hands, it is important to make a separation between the good things that they've done for you and the bad. We must repay our debt of gratitude for the good things and do our best to forgive the bad things without mixing them up or thinking one cancels out the other. Sometimes a dutiful son or daughter knows that giving their parents money will only fuel them to do irresponsible things like, let's say, gambling. In such cases, children should still try to be supportive, but give support in the form of food or clothing that they cannot exchange for cash, and treat the parent with cautious respect, like a person with a disease beyond their control. If a parent has been incarcerated, then we should still try to comfort them by visiting them in prison. So for today, I'd like to finish up with the story of how the Buddha helped an old Brahmin who had been abandoned in his old age by his sons once they had got married. Once in the Indian city of Savatthi, there lived an old Brahmin who was extremely rich. He had 4 sons, and when each of the sons got married, he gave them a share of his wealth. Later on, he gave away half of his remaining property to them. Later, after his wife died, the Brahmin's sons came back and looked after him with loving affection. As time went on, however, somehow they influenced the Brahmin to give him the remaining half of his property, leaving him penniless. He didn't worry too much about this because he was able to go and stay with his eldest son. However, after a few days, the daughter-in-law dropped a hint. "Did you give extra inheritance to your eldest son? Don't you know the way to the house of any of your other sons?" Hearing this, the old Brahmin felt ashamed and left the eldest son's house for the house of his second son. The same remarks were made by the wife of his second son, and the old man went to the house of his third son, and finally to the house of the fourth and youngest son. Thus, the old man was left destitute, and, taking a walking stick and a begging bowl, he went to the Buddha for protection and advice. At the monastery, the Brahmin told the Buddha how his sons had mistreated him. The Buddha taught him some verses and advised him to recite them wherever there was a large gathering of people. And the verses went something like this. My foolish sons are like ogres. They call me father, father, but the words come out of their mouths, but not from their hearts. They are deceitful and scheming. Taking the advice of their wives, they have driven me out of their homes. So now I've become reduced to begging. These sons are of less service to me than this walking stick. When the appointed day came for the Brahmins of Savatthi to hold their meeting, and knowing that his sons would be there too, the old Brahmin also attended the meeting. Now at that time, the prevailing law dictated that it is punishable to ill-treat a parent by not supporting or looking after them. Many people in the crowd, or hearing the verses recited by the old Brahmin, went wild with rage at the ungrateful sons and berated them for neglecting their father. Only then did the sons realize their mistake and knelt down at the feet of their father and asked for forgiveness. They also promised that from that day forth they would look after him properly and would respect, love, and honor him. They also warned their wives to look after their father as well. Each of the sons gave him proper food and clothing, allowing the Brahmin to recover his health. So he went to the Buddha and was able to donate to the monastic community 2 food trays out of the 4 he was receiving each day from his sons. One day, the eldest son invited the Buddha to his house for alms food. After the meal, the Buddha gave a discourse on the spiritual benefits of cherishing one's parents and related the incident to a similar past life story of an elephant called Dhanapala, who also displayed filial piety. So this session, I have introduced to you blessing number 11 on cherishing our parents. For my next live session online, which will, fingers crossed, be a week on Sunday morning, I'll move on to the 12th blessing on the topic of cherishing our children, which explains how it can be a pathway of blessings to avoid raising little monsters. For good measure, I would like to remind viewers you can email your questions about meditation or what you've heard in the lecture to the email address that you can see spelled out on the slide, and I'll do my best to answer these on my next session. In the meantime, I try to stay healthy, avoid recklessness or complacency in the face of the virus, maintain positive mood, speak only positive words, forgive others, extend good wishes to others, and meditate daily. Hopefully, as a result of today's session, you will now be a little bit more at home with the idea of filial piety and how to practice it. So for today, this is me, Phra Nicholas Thanissaro, signing off for now. So long, folks, and stay safe.